In this video, you are not just going to listen to a story. You are going to experience one. This is not just another video. It's a journey that will teach you, motivate you, and help you sharpen more English listening and speaking skills. Welcome to Speak English Daily, a place where stories become lessons and lessons become growth. Here, you'll find motivational tales, inspiring moments, and a plethora of learning opportunities waiting for you inside every video. At the end of this story, you will find a PDF in the description with the meanings of important words and phrases used in this episode. So don't forget to check it out, because learning English is not just about hearing, it's about understanding. Now, let's begin. Sit back, relax, and listen carefully to The Mountain and the Climber, the journey of Aaron. Aaron was a young man from a small village. He had always looked up at the mountains that surrounded his home, their snow-covered peaks touching the clouds. Every morning, when the sun rose behind those peaks, the golden light touched his face, and a single thought repeated in his mind: one day, I'll climb that mountain. But everyone in his village laughed. "Aaron, you can't climb that," they said. "It's too high, too dangerous, too far." And maybe they were right, because Aaron had no training, no expensive gear, and no guide to show him the way. All he had was a dream. But sometimes a dream is enough to start the climb. One cold morning, without telling anyone, Aaron packed a small bag, a bottle of water, a loaf of bread, a photograph of his family, and a notebook where he wrote his thoughts. He looked up at the mountain. The air was sharp and heavy with mist. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Let's begin." The first few hours were easy. He walked through soft grass, heard the birds singing, and felt freed for the first time in his life. But soon, the ground became rocky, and his legs began to ache. The sun burned his skin, and the mountain no longer looked welcoming. Aaron stopped, exhausted. He thought of going back, but then he remembered the people who laughed at him, and that memory gave him strength. He said quietly, "I didn't come this far to stop now." As he climbed higher, the weather began to change. Dark clouds gathered, and the wind howled through the valley. Rain started to fall, cold and unforgiving. His clothes were soaked, his hands trembled as he gripped the rocks. Every step became a battle. Every breath felt heavier. At one point, he slipped, falling onto his knees, scraping his hands. Pain shot through his body. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Why am I doing this?" But deep inside, a quiet voice answered, "Because you believed you could." That voice was small, but it was stronger than the storm. On the third day of his climb, Aaron met an old man sitting by a campfire. The man wore a heavy coat and had eyes that looked like they'd seen many lifetimes. "Where are you headed, young one?" the man asked. Aaron replied, "To the top." The old man smiled slightly. "Many have tried, few have reached. Why do you want to climb?" Aaron thought for a moment. He didn't have a clear answer. He just said softly, "I want to see the world from up there." The old man nodded. He handed Aaron a piece of bread and said, "The climb is not just about reaching the top. It's about becoming the person who can." That night, Aaron slept by the fire, and his heart felt lighter. The next morning, the old man was gone. Only his footprints remained in the snow. Aaron smiled. Maybe the mountain had sent him a teacher. As he climbed further, he began to notice things differently. The same rocks that once looked dangerous now looked like steps. The wind that once scared him now whispered lessons in his ear. He realized the mountain was not his enemy. It was his teacher. Every slip, every fall, every ache was a lesson in patience, in strength, in humility. But on the 7th day, Aaron reached his breaking point. Food was almost gone. His shoes were torn. He hadn't spoken to anyone in days. He sat down on a flat stone, looked up at the peak still far away, and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." Tears rolled down his face. He felt small, invisible. And then he remembered the old man's words. The climb is about becoming the person who can. He looked at his torn shoes, his bruised hands, and suddenly realized he had already become stronger than the person who started this journey. So he stood up again, one step and another and another. Finally, after days of struggle, Aaron reached the peak. The world below looked unreal. The valleys, the rivers, the clouds, everything seemed silent, peaceful, endless. He stood there, trembling not from cold, but from pride. He whispered, "I did it." But as he stood there, he realized something deeper. The mountain was not conquered. It had allowed him to reach. He had not climbed over it. He had climbed through himself. And that was the real summit. Aaron stayed at the top for a while, watching the sunrise spread golden light across the horizon. He thought of his village, of the people who doubted him, and he smiled. He didn't need to prove anything anymore. He knew what he was capable of. When he descended, the path looked differently. It was the same mountain, but Aaron was no longer the same man. When he reached home, the villagers gathered around him in disbelief. They asked, "How did you do it, Aaron?" He smiled and said, "The mountain teaches only one lesson: keep climbing." And from that day onward, whenever someone doubted themselves, Aaron would simply point toward the mountain and say, "Go find your own climb." And so, dear listener, this story isn't just about Aaron, it's about you. We all have our own mountains, dreams that feel too far, goals that seem impossible, paths that test our strength. But remember this, you don't need to see the entire path. You just need to take the next step. Because every great journey begins with one small act of courage. So keep climbing, keep learning, and keep believing. Thank you for listening to Speak English Daily. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to check the PDF in the description. It contains the meaning and explanation of all important words used in this episode. Subscribe to Speak English Daily for more motivational stories, fictional tales, and daily practice to sharpen your English. Because here, we don't just learn English, we live it.